can we agree that in this conversation that you'd permit me to discuss any matter that you operate like a mafia? Oh, where do they come up with that?
I still fail to understand why and where they come up with that.
But you've heard that before.
Everybody tells me every day.
Why is it that you guys would phone her and say that we threaten legal action against you? Because you're a powerful body.
But you're not telling me on one side.
So why didn't you guys go out and tell the public on Facebook that if any of you make a comment about us, we will sue your pants off? Because that's the exact quotation.
No. You see, it's quick to go and make an assumption on this thing. We will do whatever is necessary for us to protect the good name. Halas.
Including threatening people.
I'm not saying that it was threatened. If people can't come up with the proof, they can't come up with the proof.
And we are happy to tell our audience to come forward with those things, because it's one thing making the allegation and it's the next thing to be able to prove that allegation. Hello and welcome to the show. So, a much anticipated program, because things that concern the public always seem to be anticipated by the public. One of the issues that we receive as media is the matter around Sahuc and the position of Sahuc dealing with Hajj and Umrah, and I think with Hajj at most times. People talk about lots of things. So we receive issues related to corruption, fraud, nepotism, all kinds of things. Be that as it may, I believe that everybody needs the opportunity to discuss these issues so that we can put some of them to bed. If not, that might just be a problem. Imam Hashiem, Salie, welcome to the show. You are the previous president of Sahuc and now the current chair of the Western Cape.
Yes, my term came to an end about nearly 4 years ago. Sahuc treasurer, at one stage chairman of the Western region, back chairman of the Western region, past president of Sahuc, and I headed the Hajj mission for about 5 years.
So this means that
2005 to 10 or something like that.
So this means that if viewers are sitting back thinking that did we bring the correct person in the studio to answer their questions, you'd be able to, because you've had multiple portfolios around all of that.
Yes, and also you must remember that Sahuc is an organization that was established about 21 years ago. And that's the establishment was necessitated through the need for the South African government to normalize relationships for Hajj to what was applicable to everyone or everybody else in the world. Because of the non-relationship or the non-recognition of the apartheid government before the advent of the 1994 elections, South Africans used to get their visas on arrival at Jeddah Airport. So a lot of what we have to do now is because of the normalization process and the integration process of South Africa into the League of Tribes and Nations, which sends people for Hajj.
So when one defines your exact mission, vision of the organization itself, what do you define that as in a one-line summary?
Well, you have the formal identification issues, which is in terms of its constitution. But at the end of the day, Sahuc is the custodians of an allocation of visas. And these visas change by number from time to time. So you either chuck it up in the sky and say, people go and rush for it, and the fittest and the wealthiest will probably reach for that sky, or you have a process of management and administration in which you deal with those matters. And hence we have Sahuc therefore is an administrative body that deals with the visa processes for South Africans, for Hajj only.
Before we get into the actual nitty-gritty of what we want to discuss, we obviously know that there are lots of hard matters that we need to talk about, because we're dealing with an organization that is entrenched in the community and public domain. And when we have finances and we have something as deep as Hajj, which many Muslims find at the very core of their desires and dreams, then we need to have a very robust conversation about these things. in the interest of our audience and the public out there, can we agree that in this conversation that you'd permit me to discuss any matter
Absolutely.
that affects Sahuc people
we have to discuss everything
in a very robust manner?
Absolutely, I have no problem with that.
Do you believe that the public itself then has the right to know anything and everything related to Sahuc?
Absolutely, we live in an era of transparency. We live in an era of accountability. We live in an era where we have to subscribe to sound corporate governance and principles. And as a result of which, as a body in which people have an interest, Sahuc has to disseminate whatever information is necessary for the public to be satisfied in their needs.
One of the broader questions that, and as you know that this time around, I did not prepare any questions. Generally on a show, I'm going to go and prepare some ideologies that I really want to talk about, philosophies. This time I did something different, and that was we put a question out to the public, and we put the synopsis out to the public, and we said, you advise me on what to ask, because you don't always have contact. And two things can happen out of that. One is that questions will go answered that are looming around, that either create misconception or creates disassociation and disunity in our community because people don't understand certain things, or the public's going to sit back after the show and say, my questions are not answered, or was this man being straight and direct with you? So that will happen. But I think that the approach and the attempt right now is to say, let's go through some of those issues that affect people, and then let's move forward from there and see how they accept that.
Let's go for it.
One of the key aspects that come up all the time is legitimacy. People ask this question all the time. Who put them in place? What process was used to put Sahuc in the position that they are, and what made them represent me? So I know that you mentioned there's a 20-odd year history and things have started all the way down there. But can you shed some light on that?
Let's start back in 1994. I think that is the overriding time. At that time, Alfred Nzo was the Minister of Foreign Affairs for South Africa. And when the issue of Hajj came about, the South African government policy was that they wouldn't get involved in matters of a religious nature, because of the secular state that South Africa is in. Hence, the Department of Foreign Affairs, then currently known as DIRCO, constituted a meeting of Muslim organizations as well as political parties, in other words, the interested parties, in Pretoria in 1994. The actual meeting took place about 2 years later in 1996, and at that meeting Sahuc as an organization was constituted. In other words, the South African Hajj and Umrah Council was brought into life, and the sole aim at the time was for Sahuc to become the custodians of the allocated visa allocation.
But what's the public participation in such a process? In South Africa, we talk about democratic process. How is the public consulted within such a process?
Well, let's put it this way.
And are they supposed to be?
Over time, we now have what you call member organizations. Sahuc is constituted by member organizations. It adds and subtracts and goes.
So that's like the MJC, for example.
But member organizations have now been, I think, about 27, 28. But at one stage it was something like 40, 45. Remember, at one stage your Pan-Africanist Congress, your African National Congress, your Democratic Alliance, those were all member bodies. Even the Inkatha Freedom Party was a member body of Sahuc, constituted the organization called the South African Hajj and Umrah Council. And that stayed to that effect up till about 2005, 2006, when the political parties started to withdraw from Sahuc. But you will always also find that the first president of Sahuc was the late Quota Ibrahim, which represented the PAC. After him, the president was Salie, which represented the ANC. And so it was politicians that initially ran Sahuc. And that is essentially where the birth and legitimacy of the organization came from. Then the member bodies that constituted Sahuc at the time became the member bodies. Some of them is still member bodies today, others have gone by the wayside. And so you have every other year you'll find people that are organizations. The fundamental issue with Sahuc is that the constituent assembly is representatives of member bodies. I, for instance, represent the Majlis Shura al-Islami on Sahuc. The Muslim Judicial Council is represented currently by Maulana Shuaib Appleby. Awqaf South Africa is by Shaheen Iso. And so all these organizations have a representative which forms then the body called the South African Hajj and Umrah Council.
I get that aspect, but does that really mean that there's a mandate from the public?
The mandate from the public is entrenched in the fact that all of those organizations have some sort of public support and some sort of constituency.
Somebody like OCAF?
OCAF has a constituency.
And how big could that be?
Well, then you have to ask OCAF. I didn't study OCAF to understand what their constituency is.
But when one looks at the numbers of the organizations that dropped by the wayside, as you mentioned, does that indicate a lack of interest in Sahuc over
yes,
time?
well, it's better to do this way. You always have a varying interest in an organization. When the going is good, people just stay away, disappear. And when it goes a bit tougher and political power play comes into being and organizational issues come to the fore, and then there seems to be more interest. But it's also true that a lot of your organizations is dependent on the one or two persons which is passionate about the South African Hajj and Umrah Council aims and objectives that causes them to stay within that organization. But yes, member bodies have to keep their representatives accountable to them, because Sahuc is an organization that promotes all the issues of transparency, of corporate governance, of sound governance, of the code King 3 and King 4 codes and whatever you have, in order for us to remain accountable to all of South Africa.
What's the legal status of, or the entity status of Sahuc at the moment?
Sahuc is a free association of persons not for gain.
So you're not an MPO then?
No, MPO is a voluntary registration with the director of non-profit organizations. Sahuc is a free association of persons not for gain. And that is a constituent people
Does it not pose some challenge in legal matters at times?
No, because the Constitution reigns supreme. The Constitution gives the powers to the board and whoever the delegated authorities is that is dealing with those type of things.
I just want to fast forward the tape a little bit and talk about one of the big issues misunderstood by the public is fees that they need to pay, and what do you guys do with those fees? I understand that you have your audited statements online and that sort of thing, and you make that public. But I think an individual wants to know the breakdown of that cost for starters.
You know, Faizal, the whole question is how does one actually go and say the breakdown of costs? At the end of the day, you have to, as an organization, promote the aims and objects of that organization. And in promoting the aims and objects of that organization, we have one fundamental agreement which happens every year. This is called the protocols. So, in order to be the custodian of those visas, allocation of Hajj visas, the South African Hajj and Umrah Council engages with the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah in Saudi Arabia and comes up with a series of documents that covers the process of Hajj for that year. And so for all of those issues that is agreed upon, there is a cost involved. And that costing is therefore dealt with by the NEC when it gathers once a year. At the AGM, it decides on the fee that will be levied. That is being done in terms of a budget that is proposed, and people engage with that budget in terms of there is the expenses that is going to have to be paid for this year, and a fee is then decided upon. It's not a decision which is made by someone and saying that is what we're going to do. As a result of which, our year-end February 2016 annual financial statements, which is audited, is available. Right, it has been approved at the AGM of Sahuc, and it was published in I think it was October, November, so it's on the website. And so it's open for all and sundry to see exactly what the income is, the expenses is, the nature of expenses.
Do you believe that some of the public out there still believes that that particular fee is exorbitant? Do they complain about that?
There is people that complain about it. Unfortunately, one has to look at the cost and the actual expenses that is incurred for us to do whatever we have agreed upon to do.
Does your balance sheet indicate a profit at any time?
No, you can't speak about profits. We have to speak about surpluses.
Okay, let's talk about the surplus.
Now, yes, we would have reported a surplus. But for sustainability, we have to have some surpluses. The question is, if you look at the Hajj fee for that matter, 3 or 4 years ago hasn't increased for 2 or 3 years. And then suddenly we had a dollar rand exchange rate fluctuation or increase that shot up in the sky. Because the real is linked to the dollar, that means that costs double, the treble just by virtue of a change in the foreign exchange rather than a substantive price increase. Those type of things needs to be considered from time to time.
There's allegations that you have an account in Saudi Arabia. I can think to myself that it might be a good idea to have one in Saudi Arabia, but is there one in Saudi Arabia?
Yes, there must be one, otherwise we can't function as a bi'atha.
Correct, yes.
In other words, all the guarantees, those type of things that is required needs to be done by a Saudi bank. And so there is a correspondent bank in between, and we have to operate an account between up to the months of Hajj. In other words, at the moment that account can't be operational, it shuts down after Hajj. I think it's
so there's no actual money stored in that account.
No, it's the 15th of Muharram, it shuts down, and then it gets opened again on the 1st of Shawwal, because of those guarantees that is needed and required and all sorts of things that is in that.
I think I can accept that, because that's logical. But I think that where the question was coming was people were asking, are you storing money or saving money on that side? And you're saying no.
No, we're not. There might be cash in the bank account from time to time, but that is in order for us to facilitate whatever is needed in any event that is reported within your year-end balances in your financial statements.
Before we go back into that area, I want to go into something that's just operational for now. When the biggest issue that comes up with people, and the biggest allegation that we found from the public, and they level this one all the time, is the fact of, and we are happy to tell our audience to come forward with those things, because it's one thing making the allegation, and it's the next thing to be able to prove that allegation. The one that you're probably used to is the fact that people say, I've been on the list from 2013, this guy says he applied last week, there he went through, so there's all of that going. What's the actual process before we get into some of those issues?
Let's put it this way. The Hajj queue is something which is there, and our
you're of course aware that this is the contention
is always first come, first serve. We must also remember that sometimes people put down the names, but they don't pay the registration fee. Now, if 72 hours have gone past and you haven't paid your registration fee, then you will now move to the date on which it actually is paid. Say for instance, Faizal Sayed goes on to your tablet and you go and register today. You get a reference number and it says that you must please make this deposit by EFT, by whatever means that you're going to pay. If 72 hours pass, that is now 3 working days, and you haven't paid, then it will not stand on the 4th of March. Then it will stand on the 10th of March of 2017, and if you decided to pay in December of 2018, it will be on that date.
So there's no actual computerized system that decides who's going. You guys are manually choosing who goes based on...
It's an ordered list. In other words, on the date and time that the person has registered or completed registration, in other words, together with the fee for registration being paid. Once that is recorded, the list is being made up, and then we have the Association of Muslim Accountants and Lawyers that also puts an audit process to that list every year.
So how does one answer the question when people keep saying that I applied in 2013, for example, but I know someone that applied after that and I feel that I've complied with everything. Now, we have those kind of people that have contacted the show and said, please raise that matter with us.
Well, then they must bring us to proof, really. I would really want to see and know that.
Are you guys open to such discussion?
Absolutely.
In studio with the public?
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, let's put it this way. Ultimately, it goes about who registered at what time. If you have a female, this female stands in the queue on, today we're standing in the queue on the 10th of April 2013. And so this person now gets accredited. She says, I want a mahram. And my mahram is Faizal Sayed. And Faizal Sayed has not yet registered. So Faizal Sayed goes and he registered today. She has elected him as her mahram. So she's pulling that person, that male, to her in the queue.
I get that.
Every woman has a right to a mahram.
So are you saying that the system allows for the automatic approval of the mahram?
Yes.
Based on the fact that the approval of the principal was there?
Yes.
Okay. So what happens in the event of Sahuc? Let's just go deeper into operations again. Sahuc staff that needs to go and attend. And needs
Sahuc
to...
don't have staff that attends.
Your volunteers?
There's volunteers, yes.
So your volunteers go along. Is there any management level employees or that is in the organization, volunteers, whoever, who travels and is allowed to take their spouses with them?
No.
Not at all?
Never.
So no spouses travels with at all?
Not at all.
Now again, we have members of the public making that allegation.
No. You know, when people go, when members of Sahuc goes for Umrah, goes for Hajj, they're entitled to take their wives with them. Nobody's saying that they've not paid for that. Because all of us have families that has to go for Hajj, it has to go for Umrah. And so that happens. But it's not a Sahuc paid thing. It's not a Sahuc sponsored thing. It's nothing of the sorts.
Imam, do you believe that, and you've been in this for a long time.
Yes, since 2004.
Do you believe that the public is always on your tail, putting pressure on you?
It's always good for the public to be on your tail and putting pressure on you.
Do you not feel that, why do you want to go through this sometime?
Why not? We are accountable to the public. It's their money. If I have your money, what do you want me to do?
So you don't feel, you guys now can go all to hell because we just had enough?
No, we are
you don't get to that point.
We're accountable and we must remain accountable.
The 10,000 rand that travel agents pay, what is that for?
Well, travel agents needs to be administered. There needs to be...
What does the administration process involve?
They need to be accredited, they need to be interviewed, people need to travel forwards and backwards, there need to be representations made. However you want to go and quantify it, at the end of the day, if I give you an hour of my time, and I give it for you for free, right? Then I give it for you for free. But when you want to sell my time, you can sell it at 16.50 an hour, or you can sell it at 2,000 an hour, whatever the case may be. So,
but you don't think that you're collecting money from the travel agent and the public for the same service?
no, it's not. The travel
But they're going to build it into the
travel agent pays us for the ability for us to check that he has the financial credibility, he has the resources, he has the ability to contract. Those type of evaluations gets done.
He's eventually putting that into the cost for the Hajj down the line.
Yes,
So the Hajj is being taxed twice on it, essentially.
no, well, you can't. You can't now simply see that is a direct and indirect. At the end of the day, for that guy to trade, he needs a license. He pays for a license, whatever the case may be. How is it come? His costing business is his business.
Is Sahuc in favor with travel agents or not?
How do you mean in favor with travel agents?
I've just did a random call about in the week to find out how some operators feel about you guys, and some operators don't, and some say we don't want to deal with them, and some say it's fine, and I'll go through that later on. Some people have said lots of things, and some people have said some good things. But generally, do you feel that travel agents are happy with what you guys do?
Well, at the end of the day,
are you not interfering in their business?
At the end of the day, a travel agent is an organization that sells a service. Whether the result of that service is a profit-making entity or a non-profit-making entity doesn't really matter. But that operator sells a service, and that service needs to be a credible service. The consumer needs to be protected in that service all the time. We don't have any preferences about Hajj operators. Hajj operators need to do and trade as they need to trade, as long as they have a credible, ethical business and business process. Are subject to the code of conduct which they sign with the South African Hajj and Umrah Council. If they don't sign it, then there's no agreement, then we want to credit it.
On the side comments are comments like, they've got hidden skeletons. So anybody can say that, and I agree, Imam. Anybody can say that about anybody and any organization. But why is it that at this time that we find the public continually pointing fingers at your organization? What is it that's making them go that way?
Well, you know what, if they have an interest in us, then they have to ask us the questions.
They say that you operate like a mafia. Oh, where do they come up with that?
I still fail to understand why and where they come up with that.
But you've heard that before.
Everybody tells me every day.
Shaheen Esso, what does he do?
I don't know, what does he do?
Is he the head of Sahuc?
He's the president of Sahuc.
He's the president of Sahuc.
Yes.
So if he's the president of Sahuc, then he has to agree with all the ideals of Sahuc. And he's got to follow everything that you've mentioned to me earlier on in this program.
At the end of the day, the president of Sahuc basically has an instruction. He implements the strategy which has been decided upon by the National General Council. And that's what he has to do. Whether he agrees with it or not, I don't know.
Imam, are you aware of a lady that was contacted on Facebook that was being curtailed by Sahuc and threatened legal action if she continued the petition against Sahuc?
Let's put it this way.
Are you aware of the case, for starters?
The South African Hajj and Umrah Council has a
Imam,
duty.
if I may stop you for a moment, I just need a categorical yes or no. Are you aware of this case?
You didn't tell me who it is, so I can't tell you if I'm aware of it.
I don't want to expose
No,
the
but
lady.
at the end of the day, I cannot say yes, and you and I are not on the same page.
Are you aware of any lady that's been contacted in the last?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. But that goes against what you said in the beginning of the interview.
I'm saying to you that the protection of our good name is a fiduciary responsibility of every member of the board of Sahuc.
I agree with you on that.
And-
But if somebody says, it goes in the public and says, I think these guys they've got skeletons in the cupboard, why is it that you guys would phone her and say that we threaten legal action against you? Because you're a powerful body.
But you're not telling me on one side of the story.
What's the other
You're
side?
not telling me the story in which people say, but we have engaged, we have discussed, we have told, we have engaged, and you continue with that, and therefore we will do whatever we need to do to protect our good name.
But you're threatening a person that's an individual.
At the end of the day, let's put it
but you're
this
saying
way.
anybody has the
We
right to
cannot-
say.
Yeah, but we cannot also allow people to continue creating slander. That's haram. It's
So-
it's not acceptable.
I don't personally think that we need to go through the Islamic semantics of it all.
No,
Because
but the fact of the matter is, it is not acceptable. You know, we live in a country where we have freedom of expression. So we can
But
express a view, we can
correct.
express an opinion, right? If the expression is against me, I have a right of reply.
but you're an organization.
I can, but with the
You're an
organization has a right of reply.
But so you reply and you tell somebody that we in the secret, and you don't come out in public saying we've contacted her and we've told her that we're gonna take you down legally because we've got money, we've got everything.
No,
I personally, even between you and me, between you and me,
at the end of the day,
yeah.
let me put it this way: we do everything what is necessary to protect the good name of Sahuc.
So why didn't you guys go out and tell the public on Facebook that if any of you make a comment about us, we will sue your pants off, because that's the exact
But
quotation.
no, you see, it's quick to go and make an assumption on this thing. Let's put it this way. The Sahuc members, the Sahuc board bends backwards in order to answer the questions of people.
They've not
Right.
answered any questions on my Facebook.
Well, do you think Facebook is the means to talk? I don't look at this thing every day. I maybe look at it
So
once a
if
month.
Facebook's not the means to talk, then why did you guys respond to a Facebook post by
I
threatening
don't
legal
know,
action?
that is
You're saying that
whoever
Facebook is not.
But the Facebook thing, they look
Yeah,
at
but
these
you
things.
place no importance on Facebook. But when she posted something on Facebook, you guys were happy to call her on that medium. If you place no importance on that particular meeting, then you shouldn't have threatened her from a legal point of view.
No.
That's being
At the end
you
of the
talk about
day, there's
mediums.
people that looks after that type of thing. Hashiem, Salie don't look at Facebook.
I get that, Imam.
But there's people
I
that
get
looks
that.
after that, and they will engage and they will do what is necessary.
But Imam, between
But
you,
let's put
between
it
you
to
and
you
me.
very clearly that Sahuc will answer your questions, and if you are becoming to the extent unacceptable in that behavior, then we will do everything that is necessary to protect our good name.
So the type of thing
That
you're
is a
calling-
fiduciary responsibility.
I get that, but then you, at the same light, you're telling me that I can't go out and I disagree with Jacob Zuma and what he does, and I can't go out and say the man's a thief. You guys need to investigate him. You were saying that can't be said about Sahuc.
You can't just accept the words of what people say.
We get that, Imam.
And
we get
if you're
that.
going to slander, then we have to protect our good names. If people can't come up with the proof, they can't come up with the proof. That's the bottom line.
Imam, can I ask you a question? Do you believe personally that an organization that has lots of legal representation, lots of bigger names attached to it, you said MJC, OCAF and all of that, it's the right technique to track someone down and threaten that person?
I am still saying to you that tracking down and threatening is probably not the words that ought to be used, and the words that you are using.
A threat
Right.
is a threat, Imam.
No, it is. I'm saying to you, and if you look at it as a threat, I'm saying to you that I can do and will do everything to protect the good name of my organization.
And that,
So
and
whether
that's-
you look
that's
at that
threatening
as a
somebody.
threat or not,
Okay.
it's certainly between the
No, you're looking at
half
the
glass
organization.
full and a half glass empty.
You're looking at an organization and you're looking at an individual. And my personal opinion is that there's a way, I mean, we have viewers calling us all the time about things. Never do we pick up the phone and say, if you don't shut your mouth, we're going to sue your pants off. And I don't expect that from Sahuc, I must be honest with you.
Let's put it this
No,
way.
we can move on to the next
if
matter.
if you didn't hear it, then you can't say it in that words. I didn't hear it, and I cannot say it was not or so. So what I'm saying is that we will do whatever is necessary for us to protect the good name. Halas.
Including threatening people.
I'm not saying that it was threatened. You need to understand it. I'm not saying it was
I see
threatened.
that as a threat. Let's be logical here.
No,
we are
you
grown
know,
men.
you can
We are
think
grown
about
men.
the
man.
words.
Let's
I'm
be
saying to
logical.
you, there
That's
is
a
no
threat.
issues of threats and whatever the case may be. At the end of the day, I can tell you that if you don't stop with it, then I will do whatever is necessary to protect my good name. If you
So-
think it's a threat, then call it a threat. Halas.
Okay.
Allah.
Okay. Can I then spin this around? Was it fine for somebody to phone and say, we'll sew your pants off if you don't keep quiet? Was it fine? No, do you feel...
I
yes or
didn't
no?
say that, I didn't hear it said.
But would it be fine for Sahuc to do that?
Yes, it would be fine.
Okay.
Alas.
Then I raise my case on the matter. The public could decide on that. I'm not here to decide. I think I need to clear my position. I'm not here to decide
I don't
anything.
need your position.
I'm
we
just here to...
said that we're going to be robust about it, so I'm happy with this.
Okay,
Let's continue.
so let's move on.
Keep with the substance. Ons begin nie om te maak ekskuusies.
Okay, let's move on then. Okay, so we have a lady in Saudi Arabia that says, I live in Saudi Arabia and the people down in South Africa are definitely being ripped off by Saudi. Everything is provided by the Saudi government for the Hajjis with regards to medical supplies. Does Sahuc then profess to say that we'll pay for certain medical issues at all?
Let's put it this way. I would want to invite her to look at the agreements that is entered between the Hajj Ministry and Sahuc. The Ministry of Hajj and Umrah makes it very clear that this is what you will provide your Hajjis. And so yes, she might be saying that things look freely available, but if you don't have it there for your country, then you are in violation of your agreement.
So you're saying this is imposed by
so
Saudi
her
Arabia?
perception is not a true perception. Yes, nobody is turned away from any clinic or any hospital or whatever the case may be. But the agreements entered between Sahuc and the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah includes the facility of the in other words, the mission for health affairs.
People do talk about the mission, the cost of the mission itself, and all of that. What does that cost actually? What compounds that cost itself? What makes up that cost of the mission?
Well, number one, you have airfares. Number two is the hiring of vehicles. Number three, it's the bed spaces. And why do I call it bed space? Because for a clinic, you have to buy out X amount of beds in order to facilitate that clinic. You have to pay for all your volunteers get certain allowances, right? Which is, I think, 110 reals a day. In reals terms, because we don't give them food, so they have to live, all sorts of things. And so in the financial statements, it's really clearly defined as to what our cost for our mission is.
It's one of the most popular questions that we had, and that was the cost of mission, and I think it's all boiled down to cost for many people. So, Imam, I've done a sample test, a very basic sample. So I put something out on social media and I asked people to engage with us and tell us what they think so that we can get into the situation and talk about this and try and unravel or put certain things to bed. And we hope that the audience finds a space in between that. But the very interesting thing is that when I look at the responses and the questions posed, it appears to me, and I repeat that again, it appears to me that there's more people after Sahuc's tail that says, but we don't need you, you this, you that, and the other, than people that agreed. And the people that agreed, one man on my Facebook agrees with Sahuc's operations and what you do, seems to be part of what you do. And then this morning, I get a message from somebody that's the only message by a Najwa Jasset Umar that says that she has no problems with Sahuc. You guys helped out with a few things in the kingdom. She bumps into your representatives, and she's very happy about everything that you do. So that's where she ends. But at the same time, why do we have an influx of people? Do you have a public relations problem, perhaps?
No, I don't know. You'll have to look at what you define as public relations.
Because if your relation with the public is one that's of a smelly nature, which I see here, then that needs to be looked at. Is there not a communication problem lying under Sahuc where things are not communicated a certain way? I don't know, I'm just asking.
Might possibly be. I mean, if you have a strategic planning session for Sahuc, then those would be some of the things that would come out in the open, I suppose.
There's members of the public that feel that, and I suppose part of this answer is sitting in the front of the interview when you explained how Sahuc came into being. So part of this answer is there in my view, but I just want to perhaps rehash this matter with you. So they're saying that back in the day we enjoyed Hajj and there was no Sahuc, there was no trouble, and all of that kind of thing. Why do they need to be there now?
Absolutely. Normalization of affairs. That is a result of a democratic South Africa. And the Organization of Islamic Conferences made a decree that there will be 1,000 Hajjis for every million Muslims in the country. Our government do not condone to breaking people down into religious breakdowns, so we don't get official stats. And so the Saudi government has agreed to accepting 2.5 million to being the amount of Muslims in this country, as a result of which we have 2,500 as a quota. And that is consistently with every other country in the world that has a quota. Maybe the UK and the US have something different. So many rumors going around that. If you look at Singapore, they will tell you we have to send 619 Hajjis. If you go to our biggest African contingent is Nigeria. Nigeria says we can only send you 104,000 Hajjis, because that is our 1,000 in a million Muslim principle. You look at Egypt, they can send 68,000 Hajjis. The most populous Muslim country in the world can send 239,000 Hajjis. It's based on that relationship for everyone, and that is signed with the Minister of Hajj and Umrah and the different state departments, or then organizations that has the authority to act in that regard from that state department.
Even the mission cost. I'm not sure if this figure is true, but somebody's quoting a figure of 1.8 million on the mission cost. Is that possible at all?
Yes.
But what would 1.8 million, if you can give me a breakdown
well,
of that?
I didn't come prepared with that because I didn't think we were going to discuss it. So it would be unfair for me to quote figures out of my head.
But a rough idea, what did cost 1.8 million? Perhaps maybe you
let's
how many people do you have?
Your mission would be about 26 persons.
26 persons.
And then your airfares would go for, 15,000 rand per person. Then you have to pay for your different facilities, clinic space, bed space, those type of things. So you could easily spend 300,000 riyals, which is about 1.1 to 1.2, 1 million rand to 1.2 million rand on accommodation. Then you have to...
and that accommodation is for you talking about...
You see, now accommodation is for you to be able to facilitate the clinic, to facilitate different areas in Mecca and Medina and Jeddah, in Aziziyah and so on. So it's not only the physical bed space where members of the mission sleep, remember, and they are sharing sometimes 7-8 persons to a room. So the bed
So there's no luxury for them on that side?
No.
So there's no 5-star, there's no such thing going on? Because a lot of people are asking those questions.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, so it's a basic operation for the people involved.
It's a basic operation, and it is what they call a primary healthcare service.
Yeah, if you look at the operation of Sahuc inside the kingdom, let's talk about Hajj. What does a public member expect from Sahuc inside the kingdom? What's the facilitative role, or the facilitative mission, if I can call it that?
Right. The Haji arrives at the various ports of entry. There is an administrative process that happens, because in Hajj your passport papers are taken away from you. Sahuc has to facilitate that process with the various Saudi authoritative bodies that deals with that. They don't want each guy to come along, so they speak to one person or two persons in the different centers that deals for all people of that specific country or mission. And hence that process starts happening.
I want to address the public at this point about something, and that is that if you make a particular statement, especially on the show when we've called people into the program to deal with certain things, it's only fair that if there's a follow-up for this, that you are able to provide that proof. I'm anyway going to ask Imam this question. I can anticipate what your answer is going to be, but let me not speculate on that. A person says, people are talking about being sold a 4,500 Rand per person visa for people close to Sahuc. Now, my view about this at the moment is that this is an allegation, and I believe that we need to get into a space where, if there's such serious allegations, that the public needs to come in at some point and say, here is my portfolio of evidence that backs this up.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%.
But before we go there, Imam, is there any possibility of such irregularity at Sahuc?
Possibility of irregularities will always exist.
What's in place to protect the public?
But at the end of the day, we have in my view, and you can call it a biased view, we have a sound corporate governance structure. And corporate governance structures is about ensuring that there are checks and balances in place for us to be dealing with those type of issues. Every complaint that we receive that is in affidavit format will go through the investigations committee. Formal communication will take place with those persons, the evidence will be collated, and the necessary activities will be dealt with in that way. Structural and procedural fairness is critical to the pursuance of the ideals of an organization like Sahuc. So I would invite anybody to really come to the fore and bring those type of things.
You know, as we're to closure of the program, how is the public guaranteed about the one bone of contention for them? And the bone of contention is always the issue of, why do I see other people going to the queue? You must have heard this a few times before.
What about people in the queue?
You must have seen other people jump the queue all the time, or you heard the story. And people say, but I've been on there for a long time, I never get to the top. This guy just applies and he's there on top. What is it? What's the criteria to actually be on that list?
Our criteria is clear and simple, it is transparent. Again, that question was posed to me this morning at the roadshow here in Cape Town. Sahuc has the right of refusal policy. So here come a applicant, the applicant stands at number one. I have one space, you can either tell me yes or no. That was the right of refusal policy. But he's going to tell me, I can't afford it now, but put me back on that list next year.
Does that happen quite frequently?
Quite frequently. Let's look at it this way. How many accreditations have we done? Right?
That's how many people traveled.
Up to come to my 2,500 now. Right.
So you know there's a fall-off percentage.
There's always a fall-off percentage.
What's your message to the public about that? Is that fair?
You know,
is it not creating operational costs?
Let's put it this way. There's a number of people that will argue on that, and I've listened to a number of arguments in this regard. If the Hajj tells you, I cannot afford it, now, what do you do? Now the Hajj tells you, Imam, I can't afford it, I have 5,000 short this year. But remember, it's not only my package. I have a family that's going to be at home for 6 weeks that must eat and drink and go to school and whatever. And I'm going to save for that, inshallah, by next year. If I save the way I'm saving, I will be ready. Then come next year and the rand-dollar exchange rate goes and pushes up prices to double to what that person has anticipated. The sad reality is the more affluent amongst us have scant regard for the types of trials that the less affluent has when it comes to that. The adaptability to the changing criterions of cost for the rich man is easy. For the poor man, it's something that changes all the time. And therefore you can tell me, but you've accredited this guy for 3 or 4 years in a row. Well, what do you want us to do? This person has made a knee in 2009. That same person has been accredited 3 times. This year he is accepted to go for Hajj. So we will have the affluent argument, and you will have the less affluent argument. And there's been the score that after the guy has been given 3 times the opportunities to chuck him off the list, can we do that? It would be fair.
So I've left the challenge out to viewers. Some that say that I've got evidence of collusion, corruption,
They must
nepotism.
please be
Okay, can I ask you, would you guys be open to be in the studio with an audience that, because I'm challenging audience at the same time, to say that if you've got all those things, let's bring them to the table and let's put them on the table and say, here's my documentary proof. But without that, we don't have anything.
If you cannot prove it, then I think
My last question. Where
must prove it.
where does the interest that accrues on the account, where does that go to? How do you dissipate that?
Let's put it this way. We have a policy that has been decided by the NGC in this regard. We use Islamic banking products, so our interest has been very minimal. In the time that we had, the bigger interest was when we had to use a facilitated bank between South Africa and the approval of the Reserve Bank, and that retentions which once in liquidity at one stage, and so you had quite a huge amount of interest. Now that interest must be dispensed. So the ulama within Sahuc has then made a decree of how that is dispensed through different organizations, which is not essentially of an Islamic nature.
Well, I think we've reached the end of the show. We thank you for coming onto the program. The one thing that we want to do is, I think that our intention as a community is always to try and discuss any matter, and whether that's on the side of Sahuc, whether it's on our side as media or the public, we must be able to sit in a triangle and discuss anything in an effort to go forward some way or the other.
Inshallah.
Thank you for coming onto the show.
قبل الله لنا ومنكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Walaikum salam. And so to our viewers, I think that I've tried posing some of the questions that you had. The interesting thing is that Imam Hashiem Salie has agreed that if there's anybody that wants to put down on paper those issues that you raise all the time, they are happy to come into studio to discuss that with you with the intention of going forward. Until next time, thank you for joining us. Goodbye.